Hello gamers, it's Tom Sidener, the Lonely Gamer, and today is Friday, March the 3rd, 2017, and it's time for the news. So we've made it to the wonderful month of March. Spring is right around the corner, and so we're hoping here where we live for some nicer weather, but today we are going to talk about what's going on in the board gaming industry. So the first thing that's got me really excited today is Plaid Hat has announced some expansions for Ashes. Now Ashes is one of my favorite two-player games. I would much rather play that than any other two-player card game like Magic or anything else, and so I'm really happy to see that they're still continuing to support this game and they're bringing out new expansions. Now, of the 4 expansions that they're bringing out, 2 of them are going to be Deluxe expansions and 2 of them are going to be Standard expansions. So what differentiates the Deluxe expansions from the Standard expansions is the Standard expansions are just cards. They don't come with any dice or anything like that. But the Deluxe expansions are going to come with a really nice box to store things in, so it's something that you can put your decks in and take them to a tournament or something. They're also going to have an area in the box for the cards. They're going to have an area in the box for dice, and they're going to have an area in the box for like tokens and stuff like that. Alongside that, each one of the Deluxe expansions is going to come with a new set of dice. So it's going to be a new dice color and new dice symbols, and so the dice are going to have cards that come with them to tell them what the dice action is, and those dice actions are going to be new as well. So this is pretty exciting. So we're getting new dice, we're getting new boxes for storage and for transport of our stuff, and we're getting 4 new expansions, but 2 of them will be the Deluxe ones. And the 2 that will be the Deluxe ones will be the Laws of the Lions and the Song of the Soak-Ins. So there's going to be the Laws of the Lions and the Song of the Soak-Ins, and those will be the Deluxe. And then we're also going to get 2 non-Deluxe expansions, and those are the Masters of Gravity and the Path of Assassins. So we're going to get 2 Deluxe, 2 non-Deluxe. It's going to be pretty awesome. They're saying that these things are going to be coming out in the next couple months, so that's going to be nice, and so start looking for them. Also, if you have a local game store in your area where you play Ashes, there's a lot of new stuff coming out for their in-store play. Some new in-store play kits are coming out with some alternate art cards, and they're also going to have some giveaways and some prizes for tournaments. So anyway, so start looking for that stuff. But yes, Ashes is alive and well, and Plaid Hat is really doing a lot to get some new stuff out there, and I'm really happy to see that. The next thing we're going to talk about is Dark Souls, the board game. If you are a Kickstarter of Dark Souls, the board game, that is getting ready to come out. They're supposed to be shipping that in March, and from what I've heard and everything I've seen on the updates in the comments section of the Kickstarter, that is actually going to happen. They're actually right on schedule to start shipping that in March. And so if you Kickstarted that game, start looking for it. I actually did not Kickstart it, but I actually got in on a late pledge, so I will be getting that game. And so as soon as I get that game, I will do an unboxing video here so you guys can see the beautiful components that are in the game. I have been reading the rule book over the last couple days, and the gameplay looks amazing, so I'm very excited to get this game and play it. So like I said, as soon as I get it, I'll do an unboxing, and I might even do a simple playthrough so you guys can see. But that's Dark Souls, the board game, and should be coming out this month. The next thing I want to talk about is something that's going to tie into the topic that me and John are going to do today, and that is that Terra Mystica is going to be available as a digital board game. Terra Mystica is a really good game. It's a game that I like to play, and they're going to be bringing that out on Android, iOS, Mac, and PC, and it's supposed to come out in the next couple months, so start looking for that. If you're a Terra Mystica fan, you'll be able to get that. You'll be able to play it on your device, and the cool thing about this is they've already announced that it's going to have cross-platform support. So that means that if you have an iPad, you can play against somebody who's playing it on the PC, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty exciting, because that's one thing that a lot of companies have not done, is cross-platform support. And so I'm really glad to see that. So Terra Mystica is going to support that as far as they say right now. So that should be pretty exciting. Now I want to make a note real quick before I go any further that as you can see, John's not here with me right now, but we did pre-record our topic for today, and he is going to be with me here in a few minutes. But I want to let you know that next week John is going to be gone. So he has been traveling. He's kind of a world traveler, and he's been gone for a couple weeks. And so next week it's just going to be me. So what I was thinking I would do is I'm definitely going to do the news, and it might be really short. But if you guys want to give me questions to answer, I will do a question and answer next week, and you can ask me anything you want. You can ask me stuff about me. You can ask me stuff about John. I will answer the John stuff if I know the answers. If I don't, then I will refer to them to a later episode. But yeah, if you want to ask questions, ask us what our favorite games are, what games we like, what we don't like, so on and so forth. Just go ahead and post the questions in the comments, or you can go to Facebook and go to /TheLonelyBoardGamer, and we have a Facebook page, and you can actually send us messages there, and any messages that come in with questions I will answer on the show next week. So like I said, if I don't get any questions, then I'll just do a short newscast without John. Otherwise, I will do questions and answers, and I'll answer the stuff the best that I can. Last thing in the actual news today is our Kickstarter news. So, Game Salute has announced a Kickstarter that's just started out there. It's called Farlight. It's a space game, and it's actually designed by Nick Sabicki, and he's the same guy who designed King's Forge. And King's Forge is a great game. I really like King's Forge. My playgroup likes it. I think they just like all the beautiful dice that they get to roll, but it's a really fun game and we enjoy it. This is a space game kind of in the same vein, where you're rolling dice and you're trying to create space technologies. Now, the game is out there, and it has a link on their Kickstarter page to allow you to go to Tabletopia to actually play the game. But I tried that this morning and the link is broken. But I'm hoping that by the time this airs, they'll get that worked out and you'll be able to go to Tabletopia and actually give the game a try before you decide to buy. One of the nice things about the game is it's very inexpensive. It's $25 for a pledge, so it's $25 plus shipping. It's a small game, so I don't imagine the shipping will be too much. And that's pretty cheap nowadays, because a lot of these Kickstarters are coming out at $100, $120, $200. So it's nice to see a small game come out that's actually probably cheaper, or at least as cheap as you will find it in retail once it comes out. So that's Farlight. That's by Nick Sabicki. It's out there right now for $25. It's got a $15,000 goal. It just hit Kickstarter, so it's at $6,000 right now, so it's about halfway to its goal. So I definitely don't see any issue in it funding. So go there and check it out. If you like King's Forge, if you like space games, if you like Game Salute, go there and check it out, because it's out there now. Okay, so let me go and see if I can find John, and we'll get together. And today's topic, we are going to talk about digital versions of board games. Alright, so today on the show, during the topic part, our discussion part, we are going to continue a little bit of what we started last week, and we are going to talk about digital aspects in board games. But last week we talked about augmentation, so things that could be augmented in the game, and today we're going to talk about just completely removing the board game altogether, and we're going to talk about digital copies or digital representations of board games completely. So I know John and I both play a lot of digital board games, right?
Love them.
Yeah, I do too. And I think one of the best things for digital board games is just location.
Right.
My wife had surgery one day, and I sat there and played a board game in the waiting room of the doctor's office, and I think it was, I actually think it was Lords of Waterdeep that I was playing. So
that's great, and it fits in with the Lonely Gamer. Players are a great thing, that when you have the app, you can have artificial intelligence opponents, and you can play a multiplayer game all by yourself.
Yep, yep. And also, one of the things that I've found that is the most beneficial for playing electronic versions of games is the rules. Because I've played a lot of games on my iPad and then said to myself, boy, we've been playing that rule wrong.
Right. Absolutely. I quoted that as a precedence once. I was playing with somebody and we were disputing the rules. And I said, well, I played the app version and this is how the rule's enforced. And the guy didn't buy it. But my attitude's normally, if it's the official app of the game, it's a definitive version of the rules.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if I play a game, if I play a board game on an app, and then I see that they're interpreting a rule different than I do, I always go back and change my board game way of playing it to meet the app, because I figure the people who made this game, at least if nothing else, commissioned the development of this game. So they had to have sat down and approved it, and then played it and said, yeah, it plays correctly. So.
Yep. Cost is another really big benefit. I don't totally understand why, but just how the different economies have kind of played out. You can usually buy a $40, $50, $60 board game for $6 or $7.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something that I've noticed too. I have some games that I've paid $50 for, and I've got the app that I paid $9.99 for, and it's pretty much the same game. Now, I will say that most of those apps do not allow you to play it with multiple people. So like sitting around a table, it doesn't replace the board game. So I think maybe in a way the people who have the board games feel like it's almost a marketing tool.
Right.
You'll play this by yourself with the app, and then maybe turn around and buy the actual physical game and play that with
And I think they're right, absolutely. If I think of any of the apps that I love to play, I'd be up to play the physical version of them with other people, for sure.
Yeah, when our board game group gets together, I mean, there are games where you can actually pass the iPad around, but I would find that completely awkward to take your turn and then pass the thing around the...
No,
thing.
I'm saying more.
No, I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
So
if I play Cthulhu rounds on my app, and then if I was at a game group and 5 people said, hey, you want to play Cthulhu realms? I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with you. I think maybe you thought I was disagreeing, but I'm agreeing with you. I would not want to play the app version with people.
But the physical.
But the physical, right. So I think that it would, if I had a really fun app game, but then I wanted to play it in a social setting, I think it definitely would lead me to want to go out and buy that game. So I think as a marketing tool, it's probably not a bad idea. But it is kind of funny that you can, it costs so much different for the app.
Yeah.
Now maybe it's because of the actual physical items that's in that game.
Sure.
A lot of your games have cards and pieces and plastic figurines and stuff like that, and all that stuff costs money. So it could just be the actual costs involved in making it. When you make an app, you pay somebody to develop it, and once it's done, you can copy it 1,000,000 times, right?
Sure.
And there's no additional cost to you.
Sure.
Than just the original development cost. Whereas in a board game, if you sell one board game, you have a cost of the components in that one board game. If you sell 1,000,000, you've got the cost times 1,000,000. So,
absolutely.
So there is a financial aspect to this that could be kind of weighing in on that cost discrepancy between the digital and the physical.
Sure. I think one of the big cons of digital games, and I hit on it already, is that it's a social activity normally playing board games, and so it's not a social activity when you're sitting playing on your iPad for yourself. And so really, that's getting together with friends and spending the night together and playing a few board games. An app can't replace that experience.
Right.
And you'd be kind of a bit of a strange person who sort of said, no, I don't want to get together with my friends and play some board games. I just want to stay at home and play on my iPad.
Yeah, and there are people like that, and it could lead people to be, would normally maybe be a board gamer in a group to be a little more secluded, if they're not naturally prone to being outgoing, and then they say, oh, I don't have to ever be with another human being because I can play this board game, on here. So I guess there is a chance that actually digital board games could lead to a lot more, people being a lot more introverted into themselves and not having to go out. One of the drawbacks that I see in board games, and I don't know if John has seen that, in digital board games, and I don't know if John has seen this, is that there are certain games that I do not want to play with John because he plays the digital version of them all the time, and he's really good at them, and so it kind of makes me not want to play with him, and one of them is Dominion, because John will kill you in Dominion. I don't think I've ever beat John at Dominion, but I see John playing Dominion on his phone all the time. He's constantly playing Dominion.
Sure.
So, he's played a lot of the different cards. He's played a lot of the different combinations. He knows what works well together. He knows strategies that he's, played on the thing. It kind of got that way with me, too. One of the games I play quite regularly on my iPad and on my phone is Ascension. And my game group just refuses to play Ascension with me. They're like, no, you win every time, and so we don't want to play that game, So,
right.
So I think that spending too much time playing specific games on your iPad can make it so that other people don't want to play with you because you tend to build up kind of a, an expertise at that game that kind of gives you an unfair advantage. So
I think that's 100% valid. The only attempt I'd do at a positive reframe of that is that it can raise the play level of your group. And so sometimes if somebody's playing a lot by themselves, they might be introducing new tactics or new ideas to the game. And if you have people who all really love a game and they play it a lot on their own, the play level's going to go up for everybody.
Right.
Hopefully, yeah.
And you can always say to the other guys, well, get the app for yourself and get better. Come on.
Right.
Buck up. Let's do something here.
Right.
Stop whining.
There's an online version of innovation that I love. And a couple times where I've been in jobs that I'm not too engaged by and I have an internet connection, I'll just play a lot of innovation online. And I think at one point I was the top of their leaderboard. So I was arguably the world champion at innovation because I was playing it so much, the digital version, rather than, doing my job.
So that's one thing that would be a good thing to discuss today. And that is, what about playing a digital board game versus computerized opponents versus real opponents? So I will say, for me, I would much rather play a computerized version against digital components than real people. And I don't know why, I just like to play against the computer.
I'd agree. And I've definitely done both. Cthulhu Realms and Star Realms, you can get a human opponent, and then they also have an AI you can play against. And to me, the human opponents are just way slower than the computer opponents and often not as good. And so I'd rather play against the computer, strangely enough.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I agree with you on the slowness, because I actually play on this, what's the name of that website where all the games, Board Game Arena or something like that? Yeah. I play games on there. One of my favorite games to play is Gosu, and that's one of the few places that you can actually play it digitally, but you have to play it against real opponents. And I do find the real opponents to be slower, but I have the opposite of John. I find the real opponents to just slaughter me most of the time, so I find them to be harder than the AI components. I can usually, when it comes to an AI component, I can usually figure out, the strategies that the AI component's using, and then I can usually kind of figure out a way to beat them. Whereas with real people, you never know what they're going to do. They'll come up with the craziest strategies, and you're like, I don't know what this guy's doing, but somehow he's beating me.
Right. Well, and one thing you lose with like the AIs is that there's like psychological fake outs and stuff like that just aren't an option. And we're friends with two brothers that every time they play a game, they just rip into each other. Neither of them cares about winning. They just want to attack each other. And you're not going to get AIs doing that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they're the best people to play with, though, because you can always count on winning, because they're just going to mess up each other's games. So you just sit back and, kind of enjoy the show and win the game. So
try to antagonize them a little bit. Are you going to let them do that to you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed a lot of different companies are they're starting to get into the board gaming scene, like Steam. Steam's a big one. Steam has a lot of board games available on there, on their site now. Steam used to be big, just 100%, video games, but now they're starting to add a lot of board games, to their options that they allow you to buy. So
I can't really understand why there isn't a digital version of every mainstream board game. If you can sell enough to have your game in hobby stores, I can't really understand that the resources aren't there to put together a decent digital version of it. And I think it's just the development. There's not enough companies that have the expertise to consistently build sellable versions of these apps. I know that Asmati games that do innovation that I really like have tried commissioning a couple different projects, and what they got was useless, and they've given up on creating apps of their games. But we're both kind of computer guys. We do programming, and I really can't see why there aren't some boutique development companies that specialize in apps, and they just make apps for every game company every time they release a game.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I used to actually have a little bit of a difference of opinion on this. Back when I started playing board games on apps, I thought to myself, well, I guess there's certain board games that are going to be able to be done on this because of the limited size of the screen. But then once they once they released Lords of Waterdeep on as an app, that blew me away.
Sure.
I'm going to be honest with you. When I first heard about that, I was like, how do they do that? The board's huge, and there's all kinds of stuff going on the board. How are they going to pull that off? And then I got the app and I played it, and it was wonderful. It's a wonderful app. And so then after that, I said to myself, I don't see any limitation whatsoever in putting any board game onto an app. So I kind of have to agree with John that after seeing what they've done with some of these board games, I don't think there's any board game that couldn't be done as an app.
Right. I'd love an innovation app, which doesn't exist. I'd love that. I'd love an impulse app. That's another Carl Chuddick game from Asmati Games. And we just recently did a playthrough of Hero Realms, and they've done, it's probably coming because they've done Star Realms, they've done Cthulhu Realms apps. I'd love to play Hero Realms as an app, and I'd certainly pay, another $7, $10, or $15 to have an app version of that.
Yeah, I'd like to have Tiny Epic Galaxies.
Yeah,
I think that would be a real good app.
Great app.
It might run into some of the same issues with me on the dice rolling. But the thing is, the dice rolling for that game's a little different. You're not rolling to get a specific thing, right? You're rolling, and whatever you get, you're trying to use what you got to the best of your ability.
And if it was programmed to try to figure out what you needed and not give it to you, that's a jerk of a programmer.
Yeah. I might accuse it of that. I might write the company, "Dear sirs, stop not giving me what I need." Mm-hmm. But I think that would be a good game. There are just a ton of games that I would love to see in app form. I mean, now there are. It's amazing to me. There are so many games out there in app form that like every time I see one, I was like, well, I didn't know that was available as an app. So there's probably a lot more games available in app form than we even actually know, because the one thing I have to say about board games and board game apps and computer programs and stuff, it is not easy to find what is available out there.
Sure.
I go to iTunes and I put in board game and it brings up a big list, but it doesn't bring up everything, because every day I see ads on Board Game Geek. Oh, get the app for this. Well, it sure wasn't in the list that came up when I put in board game for the iTunes store. So
I was just watching Will Wheaton's Tabletop, and he made reference to Eclipse. And I read up about Eclipse, and it looked like an interesting game. And so I looked for the app, which I'd read some reference to it, and it wasn't anywhere on the App Store at Apple. And I had to eventually go to the actual game manufacturer's site, and then there was a link, and it was on Steam or something like that. And exactly what you're saying, I had the full name for the game, and I, for the life of me, couldn't find the digital version of it.
I think it would be nice if somebody had a web page that said, board game apps, and just had like a big thing of all the different board game apps and where they were available and what they are, because it is kind of hard to find them.
Are they on Board Game Geek?
Yeah, but just kind of sporadically mixed around. I don't think there's a geek list for that. Maybe if you guys know of a geek list that's for board game apps, hey, throw it in the comments and we'll put it on our Facebook page. And
I think it might have a field on Board Game Geek for electronic versions. If they don't, they absolutely should.
Yeah, we'll check that out, and we'll post something if we find something. But like I said, I've had trouble finding. And in fact, one time I was reading a board game magazine. I think they gave it out at Gen Con, because every year at Gen Con they give you a board game magazine. And I was reading that, and I saw an ad for a app version of a game, and I was like, oh, this is cool, I want that. So I went looking for it, and I looked all over, and I couldn't find it.
Crazy.
And so I did the same thing John did. I went to the actual page of the manufacturer of the game, and down the bottom in little letters it said, well, we tried to do an app version, but it didn't work out. And so they actually had an ad for this. I wish I could remember what game it was, but they actually had an ad for the game, and then there was no app version. It never got made.
And that's probably the explanation why there isn't an app version of every board game. In a nutshell.
Yeah.
One additional thing that's a bit of a weird thing, but I'll sometimes play Avonlea Hills Advanced Civilization on my computer, and it's an ancient implementation of it. I think it was from back in the DOS days or something like that, and I need an emulator now to play it. And it's a funny game, because to play that in person, you're looking at 8, 10, 12 hours. You sit down early in the day on Saturday and you go through, and it takes forever. And I'm just not willing to invest that kind of time in a board game anymore. I won't play Twilight Imperium as much as I love the looks of the game. It's just too involved of a game. And it's kind of nice that you can play it certainly in a lot less time on your computer, but you can save the game and kind of play it when you have time on your own schedule instead of you and a bunch of friends having to get together for an 8, 10, 12-hour block. So I'd say that's another kind of benefit to digital versions of these games. You don't see many apps like that, but you do see some computer-based games where it's these much longer, really grueling games that it's hard to play in a game group.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because like you said, if you've got a really long game, you can play it for 2 hours or something, and you can save it and you can come back and continue playing it. It's hard to do that with board games. It's hard to say, okay, we're going to stop. I know back in the day, my friends used to do that with Risk. They had peggies, and they would have the different continents and stuff on there, and they'd be like, they put the people in there, and then the next day would come back and put them back. But that's really hard to do. It's a lot easier to say, save this game, I'll be back in a couple hours or a day or so. I mean, the thing is, we live in a society where there's a lot going on, and a lot of people don't have a lot of free time. In fact, one thing that you can note from our videos is that John and I can't get together every week to record these videos sometimes. So sometimes you'll see us in the same shirt. Well, a lot of times we'll record these things on the same day. We'll record 3 or 4 of our talking things, and then we'll just kind of attach them to the news, because we don't have time every week to kind of get together and do this. And so the same thing goes with board gaming. Like, people don't always have the time to get together and play the games, and so so it kind of leads us to another thing. One of the things that's kind of gotten popular now, and we kind of alluded to this a little earlier, was people playing games, the video game version of a board game, but not in the same location.
Right.
Okay. Now I have no problem with that. Mainly with earlier when I was talking about liking to play with AI compared to real people, was mainly people I didn't know.
Right.
Now, but it also lends itself to me being able to play with my friends who are not in the same physical location as me. So
yes, and that we briefly talked about. I don't think we've settled on whether we're going to do that or not, but each of us buying the digital version of Twilight Struggle and then playing a distance game of Twilight Struggle against one another. And I think that's kind of an interesting idea, and I agree with you 100%. I'd do that with you. I wouldn't just do that with some random person on the internet. I'd play against the AI if I didn't know.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Because when I know somebody and I know who I'm playing against, it's a little different than playing with random people. I actually do play video games. I have an Xbox and PlayStation 4, and I play video games, but I never, ever play games with people on those devices, because most of the time they're 12-year-old kids. They just slaughter me in games, and then when they get done beating me, they do terrible things to me, like call me names, and then things I'm not even going to mention in the video.
Yeah, it's brutal.
So yeah, it's brutal. And the anonymity that they have leads them to have no respect for you whatsoever. And so I just keep my account closed, and I play my game with AI or single player. And but my son is like 22. He grew up in a different era, and those things don't seem to bother him. I mean, people can
He's doing that to old people he beats.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe if I grew up with that and I was used to it, that wouldn't seem so rude and disrespectful to me whenever people do it. But it doesn't seem to bother him a bit, So. But there is kind of that age gap, and that kind of leads itself to a little bit of this as well. So Well, I think we've given us a lot of talk today. I think the consensus for us both is that we like digital versions of board games.
Love them. Yeah.
Yep. And in some case, and I will be honest with you, for me, in some cases, I like the digital version of the board game better.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, most of the time, that has to do with scoring and fiddly stuff.
Star Realms and Cthulhu Realms, digital version, way better, because there's all these combo effects that are tricky to track all of them when you're playing it with the physical cards. The app takes care of it all for you, and it's a smoother, better playthrough.
Yeah, for me, Ascension is one that I like best on the iPad, because it shows me right at the top, here's your money, here's your fighting. And then when you spend it, it goes away, and you don't forget anything. I'll be honest with you, the older I get, I forget stuff when I play board games, and when I play them on the iPad, it doesn't let me forget. In fact, one thing I like about, I think it's Star Realms, if you try to end your turn, it'll say, "Hey, wait a minute, dummy, you got some stuff to spend. Are you sure you don't want to do this?" And then, "Oh yeah, I do want to do that." So
nice,
so that's kind of nice too, because when you're playing, the physical game, you let your turn go and go on, and then 2 turns later, you're like, I don't think I did that.
Right,
Yeah, you know.
absolutely.
So
and that ruins a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you say when you lost, well, I know why I lost because
Sure.
7 turns back, I forgot to do
Sure.
this thing. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, so we hope you guys enjoy digital games. We really enjoy digital versions of games. If you have certain digital games that you really enjoy, put them in the comments because we may not know about them and we may want to play them as well.
Absolutely.
Other than that, we hope you play a lot of games. We hope you play a lot of physical games. We hope you play a lot of digital games. And until we see you again, happy gaming.